You smell it before you see anything. Sharp, sulfurous. The particular chemical tang of coal being heated past the point where it gives up its secrets. The volatile compounds trapped in its carbon structure for 300 million years, released in seconds when iron gets hot enough. The smell is coal tar, hydrogen sulfide, methane, and a dozen compounds that haven't been named yet in 1792, because the science of gas chemistry barely exists. To Isabel Trelawney, standing in her own kitchen with her arms crossed and her chin raised and her nostrils registering the unmistakable fragrance of something is wrong, the smell means one thing. William Murdoch is experimenting again. If the forgotten experiments that lit up the world intrigue you, subscribe now. What William Murdoch does next in this kitchen will change everything about how humanity sees the dark. The iron retort sits on her kitchen hearth, kettle-shaped, sealed at the top except for a copper tube that emerges from the lid and curves downward into a glass bottle filled with water. Inside the retort, coal, ordinary Cornish coal, the same coal that heats the house, cooked the breakfast, and is currently being commandeered for purposes that Isabel considers dramatically above its station, is being heated to the point of decomposition. The coal doesn't burn, it's sealed from air. Instead, it splits. The volatile gases escaping through the copper tube, bubbling through the water, which traps the worst of the tar and sulfur, and collecting in the empty space above the water as a colorless, invisible, flammable gas. Fire you can see, Isabel thinks, you can fight. A candle tips, you see the flame, you grab a cloth. An ember jumps, you see the glow, you stamp it out. Fire you can smell but not see, gas, invisible, accumulating in corners and ceilings and the spaces between walls. That's what scares her. That's what should scare her. Because coal gas, mixed with air in the right proportion, doesn't burn. It explodes.
Mr. Murdoch, your experiment is leaking into my bread dough.
The seal needs...
Your seal needs to not be in my kitchen.
William Murdoch is Bolton and Watt's man in Cornwall. His job, maintain and erect the Watt pumping engines that keep Cornwall's tin mines dry. He's excellent at it, the best engine erector in the partnership, a practical engineer whose understanding of steam machinery is as much physical as theoretical. He fixes engines the way a horse doctor fixes horses, by listening, by feeling, by the accumulated intuition of 15 years of disassembled valves and reassembled pistons. Gaslighting is his side project. The idea? Coal, when heated, releases flammable gas. If you can capture the gas, purify it, remove enough of the tar and sulfur to stop it smelling like hellfire, and pipe it to a burner, a small nozzle where the gas meets air and ignites, you have light. Not candlelight, not oil lamp light, gas light. Steady, bright, white-blue, brighter than any flame that burns a solid or liquid fuel, because the gas, already vaporized, mixes with air perfectly and burns with complete combustion. The retort leaks. Murdoch seals it with clay and wire, the practical engineering of a man who fixes things with whatever is available. The gas flows through the copper tube, bubbles through the water, and collects. He drills a hole in the bottom of an inverted glass bottle, inserts a brass nozzle, and opens the valve. Gas hisses from the nozzle. He touches a lit paper to it. The flame is blue-white, steady. Bright enough to read by, brighter than the 3 candles on Isabel's kitchen table combined. The gas burns without flickering. There's no wick to gutter, no draft to catch. The light is even, constant, as reliable as the gas supply from the retort. Tam, Murdoch's 8-year-old son, runs into the kitchen, sees the flame. His face lights up. The metaphor is literal. The gas flame illuminates his expression, casting shadows upward, making his eyes wide and luminous.
It's magic, Da.
It isn't magic. It's chemistry. But Tam is 8, and the difference between chemistry and magic is a distinction that most adults in 1792 can't reliably make either. This is Cornwall. This is a mining community where superstition and practicality live in the same house, and a man who sets fire to invisible air in his kitchen is, to his neighbors, either a genius or a witch. The pig's bladder is the most ridiculous piece of lighting equipment in history. Murdoch inflates it with coal gas, captured from his retort, purified through water, stored in a vessel until transfer, and attaches a copper tube with a brass burner nozzle at the end. The bladder, distended with gas, is the size of a small pillow. He tucks it under his arm. The tube extends from the bladder like a grotesque appendage. He opens the nozzle valve. Gas hisses. He lights it. The flame is small, but steady, a tongue of blue-white fire at the end of a copper tube, attached to a pig's bladder, carried under the arm of a 6-foot Scotsman walking through the streets of Redruth at 9 o'clock on a November evening. The darkness is absolute. There are no streetlights. The moon is behind clouds. The only light is from house windows, candles, oil lamps, the occasional glow of a hearth fire through an open door, and Murdoch's gas lamp. The light casts a circle on the cobblestones, perhaps 10 feet in diameter, moving with Murdoch as he walks, illuminating the road surface, the walls of houses, the faces of anyone nearby. Tin miners walking home from the late shift stop, stare. One crosses himself, another laughs. A third approaches cautiously, the way you'd approach an animal you don't recognize. One miner, Tom Penrose, night shift captain at Dulcoath Mine, a practical man whose relationship with danger is professional, walks alongside Murdoch and examines the bladder lamp with the critical eye of a man who evaluates machinery for a living.
Grand light. Can I get a smoke off it?
He reaches toward the gas flame with his clay pipe. Murdoch pulls the bladder away.
That would explode.
Right. Candle then.
Isabel walks behind Murdoch. She's carrying a candle, a backup she calls it, in case that heathen bladder fails. She watches the gaslight's effect on the street. The quality of the light is different from candlelight. Candles are warm, yellow, wavering, intimate. Gaslight is cool, blue-white, steady, analytical. You can read by gaslight. You can examine detail. You can see the color of fabric, the condition of a road surface, the expression on a face, with a clarity that candlelight doesn't provide. Reverend Prothero opens his front door as Murdoch passes. The vicar sees the flame, sees the bladder, sees the Scotsman carrying impossible fire through his lord's darkness. His expression progresses through confusion, alarm, and arrives at disapproval.
Mr. Murdoch, God made the darkness for rest. To illuminate it artificially is to refuse his design.
God also made coal, Reverend, and coal makes gas, and gas makes light. If he didn't want us to use it, he wouldn't have put it in the ground.
Murdoch sends his results to Bolton and Watt, drawings, descriptions, the retort design, the purification method, the burner specifications. He asks for permission to develop gas lighting as a commercial product under the Bolton and Watt name. The response, when it comes, is enthusiastic and appropriating. Bolton and Watt will develop gas lighting at Soho under Bolton and Watt's direction. Murdoch will receive credit. He will not receive credit. Not substantially, not publicly. The gaslighting system installed at Soho in 1798 is attributed to Bolton and Watt in every newspaper, every trade publication, every official account. Murdoch, the man who heated coal in his kitchen, captured gas in a pig's bladder, walked through Cornish streets carrying impossible fire, is mentioned as Mr. Murdoch, the engineer. Not the inventor, the engineer. William Murdoch set fire to air piped through a tube and lit a Cornish street. His neighbors called him a wizard. His employers took the credit. If you want to know who really invented the future of light, subscribe. Prothero is not the only opponent. London's oil lamp suppliers lobby against gaslighting. It threatens their industry. Insurance companies are alarmed. Gas leaks cause explosions, and insuring gaslit buildings requires new actuarial calculations that nobody wants to perform. The public is nervous. Invisible flammable gas piped through walls sounds like a recipe for disaster. The technical term is terror of the new. Isabel confronts Prothero, not in the street, at the vicarage door on a Sunday afternoon, with the particular authority of a woman who has spent 6 months living with a gas laboratory in her kitchen and has concluded that the gas is less dangerous than the fear of it.
Reverend Prothero, you say God made the darkness. He also made winter, and nobody says we shouldn't build fires. He made the sea, and nobody says we shouldn't build boats. The darkness isn't sacred, Reverend. It's just dark.
Prothero doesn't respond. He's a man whose worldview accommodates sailing, God provided the sea and the technique, but cannot accommodate gaslighting. God provided the darkness and did not provide the gas. The inconsistency is invisible to him. It's visible to Isabel because Isabel lives with a man who makes fire from invisible air. And once you've seen that, the inconsistency in every argument against it becomes clear. Soho Manufactory, 1802. The gas lighting system is installed. A central retort house, coal-heated in sealed iron vessels, gas collected, purified through lime water, stored in a gasometer, a large inverted metal tank that rises and falls as gas is stored and consumed. From the gasometer, iron pipes run through the factory walls, branching at each workstation into individual burner nozzles. The burners are lit with a taper. The valves control the flame size. The light they produce is steady, white, blue, and bright. The first time the system is lit, all burners, simultaneously, across the entire factory floor, the effect is cinematic. The gas flames catch one by one, each burner flaring to life in sequence as the lighter walks the line. The workshop goes from candlelight, warm, dim, wavering, casting deep shadows around every machine and every worker, to gaslight, bright, steady, shadowless, revealing every detail of every surface in 90 seconds. A worker on the night shift, a button maker, a man who has spent 6 years working by candlelight, squinting at his dies, filing by feel in the shadows between candles, looks at his own hands, lit by gas, clearly, fully, the details of his skin and his tools and his workpiece visible for the first time during a night shift. He stares.
I can see my hands. I've been working nights for 6 years, and I've never seen my hands while working.
Isabel is there. Murdoch brought her to Soho for the first illumination, not as a participant, not as an engineer, but as a witness. The woman who lived with the gas, who smelled it in her bread dough, who carried the backup candle through the streets of Redruth, who confronted the vicar and her own fear and the particular Cornish conviction that invisible things should stay invisible. She walks the factory floor. The burners hiss above her, the sustained, sibilant sound of controlled combustion, gas meeting air at a brass nozzle and transforming into light. The light is everywhere. No shadows in the corners, no pools of darkness between the workstations. The entire factory floor, 100 feet long, 50 feet wide, is illuminated as if the ceiling has been removed and the sun let in. She stops at a workstation, looks up at the burner. The flame is the same blue-white she saw in her kitchen. The same chemistry, the same combustion, the same light, but scaled, multiplied, piped through walls and distributed to 100 points of light that turn night into day inside a building designed for work. The fear hasn't disappeared. It's been transformed. From fear of the unknown to respect for the known. The gas is dangerous. It can leak. It can explode. But so can a candle tip into a sawdust pile. So can an oil lamp shatter on a stone floor. The danger is real. The management of danger, pipes, valves, purification, ventilation, is what makes the difference between combustion and catastrophe. Fear is reasonable. Paralysis is not. Gaslighting spreads from Soho to London. In 1812, the Gaslight and Coke Company lights Westminster Bridge, the first public street illuminated by gas. By 1820, every major city in Britain has gas lighting. By 1850, the gaslit street is the symbol of modernity, the visible proof that civilization can push back the dark. Murdoch's name fades. Bolton and Watt's name stays. The company that employed him takes credit for the invention that he developed in his kitchen, in his Cornwall cottage, with his retorts, and his pig's bladder, and his copper tubes, and his long-suffering housekeeper who smelled the future before she saw it. But the light is his. Every gas flame that burns in a Victorian street, in a factory, in a theater, in a home, descends from the flame in Isabel's kitchen. The blue-white tongue of fire that Tam called magic, and Prothero called blasphemy, and Murdoch called chemistry, laddie. Just chemistry. It was always chemistry. The magic was in the people who weren't afraid to set it alight.